Good evening. In this broadcast, the news from the television company Ostankino. In the area of the South Kuril Islands, as before, underground tremors continue. The strongest one of them occurred today at approximately 1 o'clock at night Moscow time, 10 kilometers south of the city Kurilsk on the island Turup. Iturtas reports that the force of the aftershock was 6 points. There were no casualties, fortunately. Meanwhile, the list of casualties of the previous destructive shocks continues to grow. Last night, from under the rubble of the military hospital in the village Kluchin in Turup, the body was exhumed of the private Popov. The fate of the remaining 6 people under the rubble for the third day remains uncertain. In the opinion of the director of the Laboratory of Seismology, Anatoly Ivashenko, the quakes are subsiding here in magnitude, and in the next few days will cease altogether. But this does not make matters easier for the Kuril residents. For now, they don't even dare to spend their nights in homes which, for the most part, are cracked or crumbling, not speaking of those which are completely destroyed by the cataclysm. More than 90% of housing is now unlivable. At night, the Kuril residents in the zone of disaster sleep in tents, automobiles, and near fires. According to the last reports of the district headquarters of the Emergency Situations Department here, as of today, 4 are presumed to be dead. 4 military servicemen and 2 women nurses are under the rubble still of the hospital in the village Kluchin in Turup, but they still emit signs of life, and rescuers are sifting through the rubble because there remains hope that they can save the people. As the weather calmed down from yesterday, active aid to the victims has begun. 10 planes have been dispatched with rescuers on board who arrived from Moscow, Krasnoyarsk, and Irkutsk with their special equipment. Several teams of medical personnel have flown there to provide necessary aid to those injured. Today, to the zone of disaster, the Vice Premier of the Government of Russia, Yuri Yarov, has flown out with the Governor of the Sakhalin District, Yevgeny Krasnoyarov. For 2 days already, a group from the Ministry of Emergency Situations has been working there. The officials on site are assisting in resolving all the vital questions. The government, for now, has allotted 10 billion rubles, but damage is estimated at a minimum of 100 billion rubles, without considering the population's losses because of the destruction of their domestic possessions. The question is being decided about evacuating part of the population from the Kuril Islands to the continent and Sakhalin, and first of all, these are children, almost 3,000 people. Lessons in schools in the South Kuril Islands have been cancelled. Today it became known that the government of Russia has allotted a significant material amount in order to liquidate repercussions of the earthquake in the Sakhalin district. According to the press service of the Vice Premier Yuri Yarov, who heads the State Commission in the zone of disaster to restore the destroyed industry of the islands, the Ministry of Finances of Russia already has allocated 45 billion rubles to border troops of the Pacific District, 20 billion rubles to the Ministry of Defense, and 10 billion to the Sakhalin district, as well as 24 billion rubles to the Ministry of Emergency Situations. Also, significant sums were donated by various funds. After the faction, the Liberal Democratic Party, walked out of the Sessions Auditorium of the State Duma today, the first crisis at this session in the work of the lower chamber of Parliament occurred. The deputy Zhirinovsky stated that his faction would not be a participant of the agreement on social accord, suspends its presence in the State Duma, and is prepared to take on executive power. However, expressions inappropriate for Parliament were not avoided. He called the president a swan, the government a pike, and all the rest crabs. Zhirinovsky walked his party out of the session. By the mammoth efforts of the chairman Ivan Rybkin, it was possible to bring the State Duma back into a working format. Ratified was the agreement on economic union among the CIS countries. In favor were 285 deputies, 2 were against, 2 abstained. Overall, at the session, there should be 440 deputies present. It's notable that this agreement was ratified long ago by the parliaments of the CIS. The Budget Committee of the State Duma yesterday rejected the amendments of the President about the order of examining and ratifying the federal budget for 1995. The deputies today wanted to confirm this law in the previously adopted edition, but the 2/3 necessary vote was not gathered, and therefore examination of the law was deferred. A stalemate ensued. The government is not attending to a series of economic issues prior to examining the budget for 1995 in the State Duma, and the State Duma cannot adopt this law. The economic problem of non-payments in Russia has developed serious social aspects. It's constantly in the center of attention of government. This was stated by the Vice Premier Alexander Shokhin speaking in the State Duma today during the traditional parliamentary hour. He refuted the press's affirmation that the government is ostensibly preparing a resolution to freeze salaries. Today, the Federative Council, at the third attempt by an overwhelming majority, ratified the decree of the President Boris Yeltsin to extend the state of emergency in the zone of the Osetinian-Ingushetian conflict for another 2 months, till the 2nd of December. Today, again, the Federative Council worked behind closed doors. And at the first attempt, not ratified, was the agreement between Russia and Kazakhstan on the space center Baikonur. Twice the issue was raised to the vote, and twice it was not ratified, as well as the decree of the President of Russia to extend the state of emergency in the zone of the Ossetian-Ingushetian conflict. The leading space specialists, headed by the director of the Russian Space Agency, Yuri Koptyev, for more than 2 days awaited their turn to address the chamber. Arguments which they presented evidently were substantial. The agreement on Russia's 20-year rental from Kazakhstan of the Baikonur Space Center was ratified. About the nature of the debates in the auditorium during discussion of the President's decree on the state of emergency in the zone of the conflict in the Northern Caucasus, one can only guess from the reaction of the chairman of the Committee on the Constitutional Legislation and Judiciary and Legal Questions, UC Kostoyev. This is abuse of deputies. This is a violation of elementary norms. I cannot participate in this legal chaos. And yet the decree was ratified by the Federative Council. The deputies voted for this decision in the package with another document, an appeal by the chamber to the President of Russia. Boris Yeltsin is satisfied that the Federative Council has opened its political year in a key of cooperation and mutual understanding, and personally, most attentively will react to the proposal expressed by the deputies so that the state of emergency would lead to the immediate resolution of conflict. This is stated in the statement of the press secretary of the head of state. The deputies of the Federative Council today adopted an appeal to the Chechen people. They appealed to the clergy and elders of Chechnya with an exhortation to stop the insanity, placate the population, and called on political leaders to sit at the dialogue table so that not by force of weapons but through free dialogue to decide the fate of their people, considering the interests of all the Caucasus peoples. The authenticity of the attempt of the state coup in Ganja in Azerbaijan 3 days ago was established. This was told to a correspondent of Vitortas at the Military Prosecutor's Office of the Republic. They've arrested more than 100 people of the supposed 300 participants of the action. The inquiry has facts about involvement in the attempted state coup by the ex-premier Surat Huseynov. The National Assembly of Azerbaijan, completing its work well after midnight, almost unanimously adopted the decree of the President of the Republic to relieve Surat Hussein from the post of Prime Minister. He's excluded also from within the Parliament. Instead of him in the National Assembly, the deputy Mikhail Zabelin was appointed the chairman of the Russian community of Azerbaijan. The situation in the Republic is calm. The situation in all regions is controlled by authorities. The Military Prosecutor's Office of the Republic, because of the events in Ganja, has laid criminal charges. The head of the investigation, Lieutenant Colonel Dabil Khalilov. Despite the confusion of late, it was established that truly an attempt was made at a state coup. We have defined the circle of individuals. These are highly placed individuals who were involved. By order of the commander in the state of emergency, as of today in the capital of Azerbaijan, martial law has been imposed. It will be in effect from midnight to 5 a.m. During this time, movement of citizens and vehicles in the city is forbidden without special passes. And so, after several days, what disturbed Baku, the scales had tipped in favor of the President Gidar Aliyev. The Colonel Surat Huseynov, who played the main role in the dismissal of ex-President Elchibey and contributed to the ascent to power in the summer of 1993 of the current president, is accused of involvement in the attempted state coup, for which he's dismissed from his post as prime minister. Fortunately, the political crisis which ripened in Azerbaijan for more than 1 month did not lead to serious dramatic events. However, to predict further developments in this independent sovereign state is quite complicated. For now, from Azerbaijan and some other countries in the region, voices were heard, although not quite official, that in the last events in Baku and Ganja, the hand of Moscow is felt dissatisfied with the signing signing of the Gulistan oil contract, by which Russia would be practically left out. In it is known preference is given to the Western oil companies. Despite the clear infringement on geopolitical interests of Russia, Moscow yet condemned any anti-constitutional activities against the lawfully elected President Aliyev. It's natural the situation in Azerbaijan is of concern also to other neighbors, Turkey and Iran, quasi-competitors of Russia in the oil business in that region. And therefore, curious will be the prediction of the Iranian newspaper Abrar. If the current Azerbaijani government falls, it writes, then either the National Front of Abul Fasil Chibay will take power, or Moscow supporters represented by Mutalibov. Turning toward Russia, Azerbaijan will cool off toward Turkey and Iran. This is what they think in Iran. Russia, according to the official statement, hopes for an expeditious normalization in Azerbaijan. But to whom will it turn? To nearby Russia or its distant neighbor? Of course, the sovereign Azerbaijan will have to decide. At the court proceedings in Stavropol, the state prosecutor today offered to apply the highest form of punishment, execution, to the Chechnya terrorists Usman Dovtukayev and Nanagayev, who in July in Mineral Waters took 37 passengers of a commuter bus hostage. At the same time, the deputy prosecutor of the Stavropol room, Yuri Shcherbakov, offered the court to carry a specific reprimand against the Ministry of Internal Affairs of Russia, and especially the Internal Affairs Department of the Stavropol room administration, which has not been providing special protection for passenger buses and does not pursue the illegal transport of large amounts of weapons over the Stavropol territory. Ukraine celebrates today its 50th anniversary after the liberation from the fascist invasion. In the morning in Kiev, on the square in front of the Museum of the History of the Great Patriotic War, veterans were gathering, soldiers, liberators, previously in the same regiments, and nowadays many of them are foreign guests. A rally took place at which the President of Ukraine, Leonid Kuchma, offered words of gratitude to all the brothers and sisters, representatives of all nationalities and ethnic backgrounds who together liberated and preserved Ukraine. Heading the Russian delegation, the chairman of the government, Viktor Stepanovich Chernomyrdin. I'd very much like to say and convey to the veterans, mostly participants of the war, those who are with us today, an enormous thank you to them, because we are able to meet today and that today we're able to work. We have an enormous debt before them. In the evening in the Palace Ukraina, the triumphant assembly was held. Participants, with a moment of silence, honored the memory of all casualties of the Great Patriotic War. A report was delivered by Leonid Kuchma. Viktor Chernomyrdin announced the festive greeting from the President of Russia, Boris Yeltsin. We continue the broadcast. The series of problems connected with forming and functioning of the taxation system in Russia and securing the revenue part of the state budget was discussed at today's meeting between the President of Russia, Boris Yeltsin, with the heads of the state tax services, Vladimir Gusiev, and the Department of the Tax Police, Sergei Almazov. They examined measures in order to increase effectiveness of the tax services' performance. This was stated by the Presidential Press Service. At the currency exchange in Moscow, the plummeting decline of the ruble continues. Today it fell by another 63 points, and now the rate is 2,896 rubles for $1 American dollar. And so during the last week, the dollar has appreciated by 263 rubles, or by exactly 10%. This probably is the most evident indicator of Russian inflation. Speaking at a conference in Moscow of the authorized representatives of the presidents of the subjects of the Russian Federation, which ended today, Anatoly Chubais warned against euphoria regarding certain positive tendencies in the economy. At the same time, in the opinion of the vice premier, the three-time increase of bank deposits by Russians, given the growing saturation with market goods and the redistribution of investment from the speculative sphere to the manufacturing sphere, is proof of a real breakthrough in the battle with inflation. As Anatoly Chubais emphasized, the mass privatization manifold times increased foreign investments and significantly increased the price of Russian property and capital. Despite the restrained predictions of experts in the country, a securities market is actively forming, on which, according to the Vice Premier, one may expect in the near future several scandals commensurate in scale with the MMM case. Evidently, the country will see several dramatic law processes as well because of the non-payment problems, which Anatoly Chubais feels by 50% are caused by major thefts. Calling the plummet of the ruble in relation to the dollar payment for the spring injection into the economy, the Vice Premier announced that the government is intending to tighten financial policies, achieving a decrease of inflation next year from 5 to 1.5% monthly. The relations destroyed by politicians among the former countries of the Union of Economic Assistance are being restored, but with difficulty. This was said by the participants of today's Fourth Economic Forum, which opened today. Poland, the East, the last was represented by Russian, Ukrainian, Belarusian businessmen and politicians. During the last half year, the Polish export in Russia has more than doubled, and the volume of trade with Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus has reached $2.5 billion. For comparison, during the times of the Soviet Union, for Poland, it was 12 billion. Poland is striving to revive trade relations with its traditional partners in the East, and therefore gathers regular forums in the mountain resort village Kranitsa. Heading the delegation of Russian businessmen, Arkady Volsky feels that such meetings are evidence of the growing striving toward integration. Without each other, we can't do. We must all work together, forget our offenses, etc., and political ambitions. We must all work together, and this is the main slogan of this conference. Today at the automobile plant in Taliatsi, the issue of salaries for August was to begin. That is the cause of the strike and standstill at the plant 45-3. But because the staff of the plant is on a forced leave of absence, issue of money will have to be postponed until Monday, the 10th of October. Meanwhile, leaders of the independent labor union Unity, who were initiators of the strike, which began in the end of September of one of the assembly plants of Avtovaz, revoked their demands. This Itartas was told by the president of the joint share company, Vladimir Kadannikov. According to him, from Monday, the 10th of October, Avtovaz plans to resume operation of its main assembly belt, and now preparatory work is underway. This is not a hyperboloid of the engineer Garin, but only an experienced laser device with the power of 400 watts. But as you can see, it melts even fire-resistant brick. According to the scientists of the Institute of General Physics of the Academy of Sciences of Russia, a system of hyperboloid type is not from the realm of the fantastic, but real. It can be developed in 3 to 4 years at the cost of 50 billion rubles. The institute has only 90,000. It's amazing that in some departments life still stirs, and scientists and enthusiasts continue unique research. For example, here in the division of powerful lasers, on this stand, they're developing a new generation of hard-body light systems with so-called diode fillings. The new laser will be 1.5 to 2,000 times stronger than the one which penetrates brick like a needle. But to continue work, money is urgently needed. In the beginning of this year, the academic Prokhorov, the director of Afran, sent a letter to the president with a request to support through government credits the development of the latest laser systems. For now, this question is being decided in government. The main problem now is how to keep our staff, where to find funds in order to save science. Probably long ago on the door of the Department of Powerful Lasers, they should have hung a lock, if not the real aid to the scientists by the technological concern Minitech, which for the creation of contemporary light devices has allotted more than $500,000. Incidentally, Afran was one of its founders initially, and now the concern helps the institute to survive. Money is also invested into the conversion programs of 3 industrial companies of Udmurtia. Apart from that, Minitech is engaged in discovering and mining diamonds in Venezuela as permitted by the governments of both countries. We're mining raw diamonds, which we bring here. That is, we do not export it, but we deliver it on the contrary, and again provide work for our companies. And already here in Russia, the sale of cut diamonds and precious stones has been launched. Super lasers, which are developed in the Institute of General Physics, are successfully implemented for cutting diamonds. In perspective, they could also be used to procure various minerals. But to create them, investments are necessary. Incidentally, the new state program called Reforms and Development of the Russian Economy 1995 to 1997, which Viktor Chernomyrdin gave instructions to develop, foresees making the basic sources of investment in science and industry, that is, private, domestic, and foreign capital. The program will be revealed in November of this year. Today, the press service of the President of Russia publicized the text of the letter of Boris Yeltsin to the Prime Minister of Ireland, Albert Reynolds. I sincerely regret, it says, that because of a disappointing misunderstanding, our meeting in Shannon did not take place. I'm confident that the friendly relations which have been established between the Russian Federation and Ireland will continue to develop for the benefit of our countries and peoples. Boris Yeltsin expressed satisfaction that the talks in Shannon conducted by the First Vice Premier Alexis Kivitz with the Irish Prime Minister gave an opportunity to profoundly examine perspectives of broadening two-sided cooperation, especially in the trade and economic sphere. The Russian President reaffirmed to Albert Reynolds his invitation to officially visit Russia in the first half of 1995 and expressed hope that before then he would see him in Budapest in the framework of the December summit of the ECSC. The killing of the 20 Bosnian Serbs by Muslims has exacerbated the situation in Bosnia. The leader of Bosnian Serbs, Karadzic, indicated that the agreement reached on removal of the blockade on the Sarajevo airport and provision of free movement for the UN convoys may be re-examined. And yet the airport, supplying most of the demands of Sarajevo Muslims with humanitarian aid, for now is operating. In China today, underground nuclear testing was conducted. The representative of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of China, who announced this, said that China possesses a small quantity of nuclear weapons designated only for self-defense. China, he said, calls on nuclear nations to, as soon as possible, agree on full annihilation of all forms of nuclear weaponry. According to the Australian Seismological Centre in Canberra, the power of the underground nuclear explosion, which was conducted near the Lake of Nor, is from 40 to 150 kilotons. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Russia today expressed regret and concern regarding China's nuclear testing. 250 Russians evacuated from India because of the plague epidemic in that country arrived this morning into the international airport of Moscow Sheremetyevo 2. The first examination of the passengers did not reveal any indications of illness, yet the majority of passengers was sent by bus accompanied by militia to the number 10 city hospital, where they will be in quarantine for 6 days. Incidentally, part of the passengers of the plane were not capable of being transported immediately. This was a crew of fishermen who, because of a state of extreme intoxication, was in a completely unmanageable state. The radio locator of the spaceship Endeavour indicated an oil spot in the Northern Sea, and so the American-German project has come to a close in order to find pollution in the world's oceans. To conduct the experiment near the German coast, 106 gallons of diesel fuel were spilled. The radar scanned the sea surface and conveyed to Earth an image of the dark spot. The Queen of Great Britain, Elizabeth II, sent a message to Russians because of her coming first official visit to the country this month. The Prince of Edinburgh and I, it says in the message, impatiently await an opportunity to learn more about this great country of Russia. We will meet not only with its leaders, but with representatives of the younger generation, on whom, just as on our sons and daughters, it will depend whether our hopes for the future will come true. I think, it says in the message of the Queen, that both our countries can and will have a future worthy of their history. They will be able to build it together. Meanwhile, in Great Britain, it seems one of the mysteries has been solved regarding the family of the last Russian emperor. 3 films were made about her, including one with the famous Ingrid Bergman. Many books have been written, but it seems that it is today, exactly 75 years later, in the tragic saga about the fate of the surviving daughter of Tsar Nicholas II, the Grand Duchess Anastasia. Finally, an end has come. A step toward the truth was made in June of this year. Dick Schweitzer and his wife Marina Bodkina, the daughter of the Tsar's personal doctor Gleb Bodkin, made another attempt to ascertain who was she really, this dignified old woman, Anna Anderson, their good friend who lived either in Germany or America, and to the last breath in 1984 asserted that she was the miraculously surviving daughter of the Russian emperor. Several strands of her hair and skin particles were found in the clinic of the American city Charlottesville in Virginia and were sent for genetic reading to Peter Gill, the expert of the Ministry of Internal Affairs of Great Britain. Incidentally, he participated 1 year ago in the genetic identification of the remains found near Yekaterinburg, announced the final scientific sentence. The pattern of the genetic chromosomes of the royal remains does not correlate at all to the genetic code of Anna Anderson. But then, who was Anna Anderson, who took upon herself a pseudonym in order to hide from the press and new court cases? It was possible to find her grandnephew, Karl Marcher, living in Germany. It's important, the nephews through the maternal line through which all genetic information is passed on. Analysis indicated full correspondence of their genetic information. The chance of coincidence is 1 in 300. This is quite conclusive arguments in favor of the version that the true name of Anna Anderson was Franziska Szankowska. The poor Polish descent worked in World War I at a military factory in Berlin, and prior to that on a farm in Pomeran. In an interview to our program, the Prince Rostislav Romanov emphasized that he and his family never doubted that Anna Anderson was the fake Anastasia. The reports of our foreign correspondents allow us to more precisely assess world events, and at the same time the world learns about events in our country through their Moscow correspondence. But of course it's always interesting to become acquainted with how our colleagues, journalists from the television world, work abroad. Novices, as a rule, are not sent to work as correspondents in Moscow. Usually for journalists, this is not the first foreign assignment, because how objective, profoundly, and accurately events in Russia and the CS are illuminated often decides the popularity of television programs overall. The Moscow Bureau of the Austrian Television and Radio, in this sense, is no exception, with only the one difference that it's headed by a woman, Susanna Scholl. Recently, one reputable Vienna magazine named her Woman of the Year in Austria, as if parachuting from a plane into the epicenter of political events probably best describes her journalistic fate. And so it happened in 1989 in Germany, where she began her work literally on the eve of the collapse of the Berlin Wall, and in Moscow, where her debut coincided with the events of August of 1991. As a result, this book, The Russian Diary, appeared, and long before that she had already written a dissertation on the plays of Brecht and Mayakovsky. Susanna, what of your artistic aspirations have you not yet accomplished? What is your dream? I have several dreams, but one of my dreams is to make a major film, 45 to 50 minutes, about women in Russia. Today, tragically, the life of the wonderful Russian actress Maya Bulgakova was interrupted. She died in an automobile crash. Our domestic cinematography cannot be imagined without films in which she played, among them The Story of Fiery Years, Crime and Punishment, In Fire There's No Stumbling, and many others. The name of Maya Bulgakova for always will remain in the history of Russian art. I'm sure that more than one generation of Soviet teachers read the teacher's newspaper, which in these October days turned 70 years old. Who was not published in it? There were so many scientists, artists, writers, and Osip Mandelstam, Valentin Kataev worked with the newspaper. All those shared their thoughts, who had concerns for the system of education, from academics to school teachers. Today, the publishing staff was congratulated by readers and fans of the teacher's newspaper, including the staff of the television radio company Ostankino. Probably the most important problem today is to form new views of education, and we would like to help our teachers understand that without a new ideology in education, it's impossible to build either a new Russia, a new civilization, nor a new democratic society. Today in Moscow, the international conference opened, entitled The Philosophical Artistic Heritage of Nikolai Rerich and the Problems of Contemporary Civilization. In the framework of the forum, an art exhibit is on display. In my opinion, the exhibit is enormous, and not only because displayed in the halls are more than 300 works from many museums, but because the exhibit, designed and displayed, brilliantly convinces that Nikolai Rerich was a man in many ways ahead of his time. Profoundly inquisitive mind, substantiated by extensive education, permitted him in art to possess a world yet unseen by anyone. It's not in vain that Yuri Gagarin said, when he glanced at the Earth for the first time from space, he said, "It's beautiful, just like in Rerich's works." Of course, in the vast collection, there is a notion of the inexorable tie of the Earth and space. Together with his early classical works in the display, there are the early theater sketches of Rerich, and we see him return to the sacred themes of the spring of '45, when the artist suffered from nostalgia for his homeland. And of course, it's always pleasant to observe portraits by the brush of Sviatoslav Rerich. The broadcast will be continued by the news of sports. I bid you farewell, all the best. Good evening. At the World Volleyball Championships in Greece, the first finalist is known. It is the Dutch team, which in 5 matches beat the United States team. Unfortunately, in the battle for the medals, the Russian team is not participating. And more than that, our team lost today to the Brazilians in 3 matches. And the last match for the 7th place, it will play with the loser in the pair Greece-South Korea. At the women's tennis tournament in Zurich, the French Marie Pierce beat the 14-year-old Martina Hingis from Switzerland in 2 sets. I'll remind you that Hingis is considered to be the loudest sensation of the current season. The parents of the girl named her after the legendary Martina Navratilova. And Navratilova herself seeded first at this tournament, following her fan flew out of the future contest, losing in 3 sets to Helena Sukova. Hockey news. Today in the International Hockey League Championships, there was 1 match. In Sokolniki, the Spartak team hosted the Army team and evidently was very hospitable. The guests won 5-1. Today in the Army Ice Palace, the first international hockey tournament for women started. In the competitions, the teams of Russia, Ukraine, Latvia and Finland are participating. In the opening match, the Russians won against the Latvian team 4-1. And they're also in the same building in the track and field arena. Today they honored the 2-time Olympic champion Arkady Vorobyov, who on the 3rd of October turned 70 years of age. He has received a greeting from the Vice Premier of Russia, Viktor Chernomyrtin. In November, the Russian indoor soccer team leaves for the World Championships in Argentina yesterday. The champions in this sport were awarded the Moscow Spartak and the bronze medal of the championship to one more Spartak team, Almaz from the city. Good evening. Information from the Oceanic Meteorological Center. The weather of the North European territory of Russia, as previously, is defined by Atlantic cyclones. Tomorrow, with the passage of a cold atmospheric front from the northwest on the Kola Peninsula, the Arkhangelsk district, in the Nenets Autonomous District, and in the north of the Republic of Komi, it will be cloudy, cold, and windy. At night around 0, during the day +2 to 7. In the south of Komi and the Volgovyatsk district, in the zone of an anticyclone, partly cloudy skies, mostly without precipitation. At night, 0 -5, during the day +7 to 12. In the Baltic countries and in the Kaliningrad district, the meteorologists expect cloudy weather without much precipitation during the day, 10 to 15 degrees. In the central and central Chernozem region and in Belarus, after cloudy days in the beginning of October, nature gives us warmth and sun. This is the action of a broad anticyclone, whose center tomorrow will be over the central Volga. During the day, the temperatures will show +18, in some places as high as 22. At night, it's cold, however, -1 to 4. Same weather will be established over the central Volga and over Ukraine. In the south of the European part of Russia and in Moldova, under the influence of a lethargic atmospheric front, brief rains will pass through and isolated thunderstorms during the day, +20 to 25. Beyond the Caucasus, clear, dry and warm, 24 to 29 degrees. In Moscow, partly cloudy skies are expected with weak winds. Temperatures at night -1 to 3. During the day, +12 to 14. The next 2 days, the weather will remain the same, but it will be 2 to 3 degrees warmer. Our broadcast has been completed. I wish you a pleasant weekend, and the Russian Food Bank hopes that your morning will be pleasant. Goodbye.